So the cross product that we're going to care about, at least the first one we're going to care about, is torque. And so our definition for torque is that the torque is R cross F. So what this means is R is our first vector, F, the force, is our second vector. So I'm going to take my right hand and point my thumb in the direction of that position vector R. I'm going to let my fingers point in the direction of the force. And so the nice thing about this is that, of course, that's relatively easy to remember. The fingers begins with F. The force begins with F. Those two things you want to line up. And then your palm is going to push in the direction of the torque. So this is basically, in terms of sort of this simple version, this is the rule we're going to use for calculating the direction of the torque with our right hand rule. So again, let's see an example here. So let's say I've got, there's a disc, there's the pivot. We'll let there be some force that points to the right acting on the disc. And so the first thing we'll want to do is draw in the position vector. So here's R. Now, those are the two vectors, but to make my right hand rule work, I want to draw them both from the same origin. So I'm going to redraw these vectors so that there's R pointing up, there's F pointing to the right. Okay? So same vectors, just drawn from the same origin. And so now I want to come back and think about my right hand rule. Well, we said I want my thumb to point in the direction of R. So my thumb's going to point up. My fingers are going to point in the direction of F. So in this case, I take my right hand, thumb points up, fingers point in the direction of F, and notice my palm is pushing in. So this tells me that the torque here points into the page. Okay? So there's a simple example. There's sort of a first simple example showing how we're going to use this torque. What if we have a second force, and let's say it happens to be, so we'll have something pushing against my disc over here. It'll still be a horizontal force that points to the right, but now obviously where it acts on my object, I've got a new vector R. Okay? So again, I want to start by redrawing those two vectors if I'm going to calculate out the torque. So R points down this way. There's R. F still points horizontally to the right. And so now I want to, again, use my right hand rule. So I'm going to let my thumb point in the direction of R, let my fingers point in the direction of F. And here again, I've got to figure out how to hold my hand. And notice, yes, it's easier if that's a 90-degree angle. All I have to do is I'm trying to spread my thumb out so that it's pointing in the direction of R and my fingers are pointing in the direction of F. Now, one of the things to be clear about, when you're holding your hand, basically what you're doing is no matter how you choose to sort of angle your thumb, right, your hand and your thumb define a plane. By definition, this is the plane that R and F are creating. And so the cross product, in this case the torque, is always going to be perpendicular to this plane. So here, right, it can be a little bit difficult. I don't have the greatest flexibility in the world. So here, again, getting everything lined up is maybe not as ideal as it should be, but notice what should be clear is that my palm is pushing out. So in this case, the torque generated by these two vectors points out of the page. So part of what you want to pay attention to is the fact that you're using, like, the whole point of your right hand rule is that you're keeping your thumb and your fingers in line to define a plane. Right? Your thumb is acting as one vector, your fingers, you could take one of them, it's acting as a second vector, and so there's the plane. And your cross product always has to be perpendicular to that plane, which is why you're interested in which way your palm is pushing. Because your palm is always going to be perpendicular to the plane of your thumb and fingers when you hold them in a single plane. So this is what we're doing. R, F, torque. That's our right hand rule.